Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Working for You. I am Les Roy Williams. I thank you very much for joining us for today's program. As always, your company is very much appreciated. Today we are going to be having a discussion on the family. Family matters. And basically it is today's program is the Department of Gender Affairs way of letting people know about maternity and paternity leave and what policies are in place in the workplace and at the government level to facilitate this. I have with me three persons on the panel who would engage you in that discussion. I have Ms. Charisma Patrick to my immediate right, and she is the Marketing and Communications Executive at Flow. Ms. Patrick, welcome.
Thank you.
I also have Ms. Camila Lawrence, who is the Public Relations Manager at the Social Security Board. Ms. Lawrence, welcome.
Thank you.
And I do have Mrs. Chanel Charles, who is the Senior Gender Officer in the Department of Gender Affairs. Mrs. Charles, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Williams.
Right, the family. Of course, you know, society is made up of families. And the family is a social institution that plays a very vital role. And some of the functions of the family are that the economic function of the family, the social function, and of course the reproductive or the procreative function. And today we are going to be looking at, of course, all of these factors are going to come into play in our discussion. The social, the economic, and the reproductive. Now, having a child is a life-changing experience and one that comes with a new job title, that of being a parent, a mother or a father. Parenting is a lifetime job, and it starts from the moment a baby is born. The early days of a child's life are crucial because it is when parents and infants first bond and begin their lives together. Being able to take time away from a career to be present for the first months of a child's life is important to parents all over the world. Many governments recognize that and provide their citizens with federal maternity leave and or paternity leave protections. These protections allow parents to take time off from their jobs around the child's arrival while still receiving pay in some cases. Maternity and paternity leave also ensure employees' position will be waiting for them once the leave term ends. While maternity and paternity leave are common practices in many countries around the world, the length of leave and payment protections vary greatly from one nation to the next. Cultural attitudes towards work and child rearing, as well as shifting societal opinions relating to work-life balance, are at the heart of the policy decisions and revisions pertaining to parental leave laws. As a result, the current maternity and paternity leave around many countries in the world are incredibly diverse. And we are going to see today, of course, especially the cultural aspect of it and how it has shaped policy and so on when it comes to child rearing. But before we even look at that, I want to start with Camila from the Social Security Board to first tell us, what is paternity and maternity leave? How do you define it?
I want to thank you for the opportunity. We welcome any engagement where we can speak to the public about Social Security matters. So again, I want to extend our appreciation for the invitation. Now, maternity leave is the leave that is sanctioned by law as it relates to Social Security. At present, there is no paternity leave offered by Social Security. Maternity leave is twofold. As we say, it's a maternity benefit. You have a maternity grant, which is a one-time payment of $450 per child per confinement. So if you have twins, that's $900. If you have triplets, it's $450 times 3. Whereas this grant is what we call a gift for the baby. So it's a one-time payment of $450 per child. Now, this is also paid to the wife of an insured man. So let's say the wife is unemployed or was unemployed during the period of being pregnant and she was not employed. There is no Social Security maternity benefit because you have to qualify for a maternity benefit having contributed to the fund for a period of at least 20 weeks. So in the case where there's no maternity benefit, there is a maternity grant. That's the one-time payment. Then there's the maternity allowance, which is 13 weeks. So a woman can claim for 13 weeks as early as 6 weeks before the baby is born. So you'd hear some people say, I'm going to take 6 weeks before the baby is born for whatever reason. They probably need rest. They intend to travel and so on. So they claim 6 weeks before the baby is born and then a remaining 7 weeks after. So a maternity leave is 13 weeks at Social Security. And as I said, for now, there is no paternity leave offered by Social Security Board.
Ms. Lawrence, I'm happy that you reiterated at the end of what you said, that there is no paternity leave offered by Social Security. That in itself is very telling in terms of our concept of what child rearing is all about. We can talk to issues of gender equality when it comes to child rearing, and these are probably things that have come about because of certain cultural norms and that need to be revisited, because the mother and father, their role in the early life of the child, those first few weeks, few months, are crucial.
As it is at this time, well, we are actually 42 years. Social Security systems are designed to work effectively based on a 30-year model. So we are at the stage of the reform discussion, and these are some of the things that we know would come from the public, as in our previous discussions on what they would like the Social Security Fund to look like. Paternity leave was mentioned. However, we must acknowledge that Social Security's laws were enacted in 1978, and the purpose of Social Security mainly is to provide income to an insured person whose income is impacted at that time. And so the woman being out of work, at home for the childbearing, and then the recuperation, because the wear and tear of a body after a woman has given birth is phenomenal. You're never ever the same after that. So given those elements and what we were then as a society, there was no consideration for paternity leave at this time. But as we move into the reform discussion very soon, in the new year, you'll be hearing lots more about reform. Again, there is the opportunity for the insured populace to say, this is a benefit that I'd like to see included in my Social Security.
Certainly. But before we go on, I want to read from the government's statutory rules and order, which pertains to paternity and maternity leave. I will read the maternity, even though that is quite familiar, and then I will refer to the paternity. A female public officer shall be granted maternity leave for a period of 3 months. A female public officer who requires extra days in addition to the period referred to in subsection 1 may upon application be granted any vacation leave to which she is entitled immediately after the completion of maternity leave. So that means then she can apply for vacation in addition to the maternity leave and go on vacation, so she will have extended time. Where the female public officer referred to in subsection 2 has no vacation leave she is entitled to, then she may, upon application, be granted an unpaid leave. So we have paid leave and we have unpaid leave, which we will get into a little bit later. A male public officer, look at the difference here, who has completed 2 years' service shall be entitled to paternity leave with pay, subject to the following terms and conditions. The officer shall be granted 5 working days, paid leave per confinement, up to a maximum of 2 confinements during his term of service. The officer shall provide documentation declaring that he is married to the expectant mother, or that he has been in a spousal relationship with the expectant mother for a period of not less than 5 years. The officer shall, at least 3 months prior to the expected date of birth of the child, produce a medical certificate stating the expected date of the birth. Paternity leave will be granted within 2 weeks of the birth of the child. Only 1 period of leave shall be granted, irrespective of whether more than 1 child is born as a result of the same pregnancy. Paternity leave may be taken in conjunction with annual vacation leave. What do we mean by a spousal relationship? It goes on to define a spousal relationship as a marital relationship or a common law relationship in which a male and female have been cohabiting for a period of not less than 5 consecutive years. Where a public officer's child, spouse, or parent becomes seriously ill and requires care, the public officer may, upon application, be granted a compassionate leave for a period of 3 days in order to deal with the family emergency, provided that the public officer would be required to provide written verification of his or her family member's illness and have it signed by a medical practitioner. Now, we are seeing here the disparities between the maternal leave and the paternity leave. And, of course, family forms within the Caribbean. We know what those family forms are, but yet we are still judging a lot based on the nuclear family, which we think is the ideal form of family when it comes to paternity and maternity leave. But we know that the family forms in the Caribbean are rather diverse. Chanel, what do you think about this disparity between maternity leave and paternity leave? And how do you think that this should be addressed?
Mr. Williams, addressing it first of all, I think that discussion is beyond me, right? But the disparity I'm seeing here, I don't want to use the word inequality, but it is apparent, it is seen. I think it's a bit heavy on the male side to see that there are so many stipulations that he have to go to just to get 5 days of paternity leave compared to the woman. I think it should be addressed and it should be revisited, but as I said, I think that it's beyond what I think.
Not only is he given 5 days, but he has to prove that he has been in a common law relationship for 5 years. with that person. 5 years. So what are we really saying? Because you're not in a relationship with someone for 5 years and you have a child with that person, then you are denied the right to get paternity leave, to be there with the mother in the early stages of that child's life.
But how much assistance, though, can he give to the mother for 5 days? Seeing that, he have to go back to work after 5 days, she would be home by herself all the time. Most times when you talk about co-parenting or in a relationship, you would just have the mother and the father living together.
Additionally, of course, 5 days is really nothing. When it comes to the nurturing and the caregiving and so on. And I think those things have come out of our ideas that the mother is the caregiver, the nurturer. She's the one who deals with the home, and all of these concepts that we have of parenting and parenthood. Camila, I see you're bursting to say something there.
This is a topic that requires deeper and further analysis other than this opportunity, because really we are the providers at present. But this is a cultural conversation. This is something that has to be talked about, that we have to change our culture, because as an employer myself, there are a number of mitigating factors that employers have to consider. And I'm going to be frank in our conversation. Whereas a woman can only have 1 pregnancy in a year, a man can have 12. And so culturally, because of where we at and to protect the productivity in the workplace, I could see an employer putting some of those things in place, although there may be already disparity, a wide disparity. We have to consider the productivity as well. There is a cost to the employer to fill when anybody is home, much less a father who has 12 new babies in a year. So those are some of the questions and some of those would be some of the reasons why this policy would be as stringent. If I think that it's draconian, that's a different view. But there are still other businesses that are now looking to offer paternity, and that's why Charisma and Flow is represented here, because they have a policy, whereas Social Security, as the administrators, we do not yet have, even internally, a policy for that as yet.
You've made a very good point that a woman can only be pregnant, can have 1 child within
1 pregnancy.
1 pregnancy per year.
Because you could have twins.
While a man can actually sire several children within a year. And we wouldn't want to think that men are siring children in order to be able to get paternity leave so they don't have to get work and that sort of a thing.
That may not be the thought process, but it is a reality. It is a reality. I'm sure if we are to do an assessment here of how many outside siblings we have, we can say we have at least have 1. Right?
Yes.
So this is not a blanket conversation where we could come up with the answers per se, but it is time for the conversation, and we're kind of starting in the middle, really.
Yes.
But we are here nonetheless.
You are correct, and that really goes to maybe why in the statutory rules and order it speaks to marriage. It speaks to marriage, and they want to see some sort of a stability in the relationship, and that is probably why they say 5 years. But let me read something to you from Christine Barrow. I'll get to you, Charisma, in a little while. Christine Barrow, who is a sociologist. And she said that there is a myth about the nuclear family. The institutional ideas about the family in the contemporary Caribbean reflect a bias towards accepting the co-residential nuclear family as the ideal to which we should aspire. And of course, you can see where the government policy and where they probably would have fashioned that policy off of, that of the nuclear family. During colonial rule, ethnocentric scholars interpreted the diversity of Caribbean family forms as inferior models of families. The many different kinds of unions, single parents, unwed couples, visiting arrangements, several partners, and the prevalence of matrifocal households were described as disorganized families or unstable unions. So you are seeing the very many different forms of the family. A visiting relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And from there, the scholars of the colonial era went on to describe Caribbean males as irresponsible and females as promiscuous. Missionaries and colonial authorities thought that the salvation of the Caribbean family lay in enforcing marriage. The bias towards the nuclear family is at the heart of the negative portrayal of Caribbean families. Accepting the nuclear unit as the norm also meant that the acceptance of the gender stereotypes where men were cast as breadwinners and authority figures and women as homemakers and caregivers. You see?
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore, the whole idea, of course, is that the female is a caregiver, she's a homemaker, while the man is a breadwinner, and so on. So why would you have the man having paternity leave for 3 months?
But Mr. Williams, on the other hand, too, I guess our policymakers are looking at family bonding, because if he, like Camila spoke about, the man may have more than one pregnancy during the year, which means that you would have a bit of a conflict between women talking about, okay, he's pregnant for me, but then he would take the time off, maybe to be with, his main girlfriend, but then the other girlfriend may have issues as to, okay, he took the time off for but if they are having the pregnancy during the same time, I think that the policymakers too are maybe looking at, conflict, because what we promote is family bonding, co-parenting at the same time. So on one hand, it sounds good, and on another hand, it sounds a bit biased. 5 days compared to 3 months.
Yes, and at the very same time, what guarantee is there that if the male is given all of this time off, that he is going to be constructively involved?
That's the thing.
Constructively involved in what he should be involved in.
Right.
That is the socializing and the nurturing and the caregiving with respect to that child. Because certain things would have to change in terms of how he thinks, how he has been socialized, and all of that. So the time off might just for him to be at the terminal drinking beers.
Or the 13th baby.
Or the 13th baby.
Yes. We have to be very conscious of what we're doing when we're making policies, because policies last and legislation lasts. It's fair to say that a policy is deal. That's good, because some places don't have any paternity leave.
True.
Some places don't have compassionate leave. And Social Security, the service, we do not offer compassionate leave. And we've seen many cases where a child is sick and a mother, mostly is the mother say, I'm going to stay with my sick child, and the doctor writes compassionate leave. We do not pay for compassionate leave.
Very true.
We pay for illness of the parent, right? So socially, there is something else that should be in place, and we see that other companies are getting on board, but for now, at Social Security, those things are not yet ready based on our legislation. As we go into reform, some of those conversations would be had, but it also means that we're going to be expected to offer more as individuals to support the new benefits that we want to see from Social Security. This is a cultural change. This is a whole metamorphosis that will see the type of change that we want to see in order for a paternity benefit to roll out in the realistic way and the most effective way as possible. Because we see you and your baby, and truly, they don't, as much as you and them present and in a relationship,
Reality.
they're not present.
Reality.
Because they don't even understand what you yourself going through.
Yeah, and not only that, we have the case of, we have a lot of dads who are not working. Dads are not working. And they're not working, but at the very same time, you're not still seeing the presence. They have that time. You're not seeing the presence sometimes of them with their children in those early stages because of the thinking that in those early stages, the child is born, the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks, the first month, 2 months, it's the mother's job. It's the mother's job. Probably the whole idea of offering support and being around and helping. There needs to be a shift.
Yes.
In the thinking. But let us move on to Charisma. Charisma Flow has a policy, a paternity policy. Could you tell us what that policy is all about?
Good afternoon, all. It gives me great pleasure to be here this afternoon and to be working at Flow. Right? And I just want to share with you our parental leave policy. Liberty Latin America, LLA, refers to Cable and Wireless Communications and its subsidiaries, recognizes the importance of giving parents flexibility and time to heal and or bond with their new child and adjust to their new family situation. The parental leave policy will be in effect following the birth of an employee's child, placement of a child with an employee in connection with an adoption or foster care, or birth of a child via gestational surrogacy. The parental leave policy was launched on June 1st, 2019. Parental leave refers to both maternity and paternity leave entitlements. Maternity leave, statutory laws of 13 weeks paid maternity leave was always the practice. However, with the launch of our paternity leave policy, expectant mothers are now entitled to 16 weeks maternity leave, 3 weeks more than the statutory benefit. These 16 weeks are fully paid leave. Social Security pays 65% of salary for the 13 weeks maternity leave, and Cable and Wireless pays 35% salary for that period, so the employee receives 100% salary. Additionally, Cable and Wireless pays 100% of salary for the additional 3 weeks maternity leave. Paternity leave, this was not a benefit for our expectant fathers prior to the launch of our parental leave policy on June 1st, 2019. Under the parental leave policy, expectant fathers are now entitled to 8 weeks paternity leave. These 8 weeks are fully paid leave. Paternity leave, however, should be scheduled and approved within the first month of birth and taken within the 6 months immediately after birth. adoption, or placement of a child with the employee. Paternity leave can be taken continuously or intermittently. If leave is taken intermittently, the intermittent leave period cannot be less than 10 consecutive working days. Approved vacation leave can also be scheduled consecutively with parental leave, which includes maternity or paternity leave. So our parental leave policy provides for a 16-week period of maternity leave for expectant mothers and not leaving fathers out of the equation. Allows half the amount of time allotted to mothers to the fathers. So here we're not talking about 5 days, and you have to go through a whole rigmarole to get approval just for 5 days. Fathers are being offered 8 weeks. Therefore, fathers get 8 weeks fully paid paternity leave. And eligible employees must meet the following criteria, of course. You have to be a permanent full-time employee, eligible as defined by local legislations or contractual terms. However, temporary employees, contractors, or interns do not qualify for this benefit.
Okay, Charisma, we are seeing here a big difference in terms of what we were discussing before, from Social Security saying that, look, we have no paternity leave, benefits for paternity leave. And you're now saying that Flow, which is a company, a telecommunications company, you are way ahead of the game in terms of paternity leave. Now, what is it that prompted the company to introduce this policy?
Well, we're a family-oriented company, and we do work hard, right? But we always put family first. And as we have been speaking here prior, fathers, they don't get to spend enough time with their children. And I am not a mother. I have not given birth to any children, but I am a mother in my own right, because I have nieces and nephews, etc. Right? So those first stages of the child's life, a mother and a father are required to be there. Not saying, the mother gets to spend 8 hours or 24 hours with the child, or whatever the case may be.
Yes.
Both the father and mother should play a pivotal role in those crucial few months of the child's life. And that is where we came in. We factored in everyone, both fathers and mothers. We're not saying, mothers should get more. Well, mothers do get more time, but, we had to implement this so that fathers can play a more crucial role in the early stages of their child's life.
Yes. Now, in doing that, your policy as a company is that you are engendering within the society, families that are more stable.
Yes.
And also at the very same time encouraging the father and mother to be crucial in that early stage of development of the child. Now, there's a lot of stigma about paid parental leave. There's stigma about it also.
Why would there be? Tell us, why would there be?
There would be because some people feel that, look, they don't see the whole thing of raising a child as a job. So why should you be raising your child, getting paternity leave, getting maternity leave, and yet being paid? You have been paid to be a mother. You have been paid to be a father. You shouldn't be paid for those things. As far as we're concerned, that is not a job. Your job is to the company. Your job is to whatever it is, the company's work. Why should you be paid? And also, it is seen that you are home doing your job while it can lead to less productivity in the workplace. How do you view that, Camille?
I want to commend, first of all, Flo for that initiative, and I want to implore other companies to get on board and to provide the same for their employees, because studies show a staff that feels appreciated is a productive and happy staff. So I want to implore other organizations to do the same. No, some may say, well, why is she saying Social Security? Again, we have to go back to the core function of Social Security, which is to provide income when an insured person is unable to go to work because a contingency arose. So this sort of support is something that should be encouraged, because we know stronger families are a safer community for us. Stronger families mean people who are more educated, people who are loved, people who are valued, and all those things tie into the other social ills. When a child don't have a proper upbringing or home, they look to the streets or to something else that may not be in its best interest, and that will affect all of society. So this is very important. I think I got goosebumps and all when I heard it's 8 weeks. I wasn't thinking 8 weeks at all. And to add even the offer to you not getting a baby, but for you bringing a child into your home for placement, for an adoption, for foster care, that's commendable. So hats off to Flo for that.
And to add to something that you said, you know, if we understand the developmental stages, according to many of the psychologists, you have Erik Erikson and so on, who has his 8 stages of development. And the first stage, basically, of a child's life is so important in terms of developing trust. Trust versus mistrust. And that is why the parents must be there for that child in that early stage, so that the child can develop trust. Otherwise, if that doesn't happen, as you correctly said, there can be lifelong damage to that child. So I think that Flo is understanding the whole importance of family, and especially that crucial developmental stage of the child's life, which, as Camila said, is to be commended. Now, Ms. Lawrence, can you explain the process for paternity and maternity leave?
Okay. Maternity leave, because only Flo up here have
That is correct. You don't have any paternity. So, yes.
Maternity leave. A woman who has worked for 20 weeks out of her 39, because 39 weeks is the gestational period, qualifies for a maternity leave benefit. If you've not had the 20 weeks paid into Social Security, there's the eligibility for a grant of $450 only. If you are a wife of an insured person, not common law spouse, but the wife of an insured person, you also get that $450 if you were not employed. And that is on the husband's account as a maternity grant. Now let's say you qualify off for your own and you've paid into the fund up to your 39 weeks. You are eligible for maternity leave for a period of 3 months, 13 weeks, and you can claim maternity as early as 6 weeks or 7 weeks before the birth of the baby. Once you do that, your qualifying rate is 65% of your earnings. So you get that for 13 weeks. Some people choose a check, so that means we cut 13 checks. Some people choose direct deposit, so we send those monies to their accounts weekly, being 65% of your earnings over the average period of the last 9 months for 13 weeks. And that's simply how it works. You go to the doctor signs off that this child will be born on such and such a date, and that's if you choose to go before the baby is born, we pay that period before, and then if you choose to go at the end, we pay the 13 weeks thereafter. So women have a choice whether they want to wait the 3 months, and most do. We want to say we work right down to the day, and then the baby born the next morning. And some of us really can't handle the stress on our bodies, and we choose to leave work before.
Yes.
So that is how it works.
Right. Now, what's the difference between the benefits for a married working woman and a married unemployed woman and a single working woman?
Simply put, if you are not working but you have a husband, you can claim a maternity grant of $450. If you are in a married relationship, you work, your husband work, only your contributions would be considered. You have qualified off of your own based on what your wage is. If you're single and you've paid into the fund, you qualify off of your own based on what your wage is.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now we've heard, of course, Flo, given that commendable, charisma in terms of the company's policy with respect to paternity leave. Now, Chanel, should the government policy be revisited? What do you think? Or Camila, what do you think?
Chanel.
After listening to Charisma, definitely. Mm-hmm. Definitely. I think Flo is taking the lead, right? And I'm definitely hoping that our policymakers, our ministers are actually listening, so they could hear the difference between the two types of leaves and leaves that are given. It's just commendable. Yes. It's commendable.
I'm particularly impressed with the non-conditions of having to work for such and such a period and 5 days. By the time you turn around for the week is done, and so on. It's commendable. It's really a big deal.
Right.
And refreshing to know that even in our small society where we don't see the importance of paternity leave, yet we see the importance of two parents.
Right.
And so it's commendable that Flo has taken the lead in that path.
Charisma, you will be seeing more applications now?
I guess so.
Now, you have implemented this at Flo, Charisma, and what benefit is it to the company? What benefits have you seen by implementing this policy? What benefits? Have you benefited anything? Has the company benefited anything by implementing this policy? What have you observed? What have you seen by the implementation of this?
Well,
because on one hand, yes, we spoke about the benefits of the policy to the parents.
Yes.
What benefits are there to the company?
Wow, benefits to the company. Well, it shows the employees that Flo cares, and we're putting our employees first and foremost, right? And we're sending a message, right, to let parents know that this is the time to build a stronger bond with your children during these crucial stages. And as you so mentioned, fathers might get the paternity leave and they might go down by the terminal and, just get wild, But that is not the message that we're sending. We're encouraging parents, both father and mother, to be there for their children during this crucial stage in their child's life.
Mm-hmm. How long has this policy been implemented?
1st of June 2019.
Okay, so it's basically a new policy.
Yes.
So over time you would have to evaluate that policy and basically to see how it is working.
Certainly. Well, one of our male employees actually benefited from it last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And he actually spoke about
yes.
how he benefited from
Indeed.
it.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is, it ran right into COVID, so he was able to spend some additional time at home, because currently we have some persons that we have flex work. So currently we have persons that's working from home. So he was one of them that benefited from that as well.
I can certainly show also how this would help Social Security, because if I am honest, we tend to see maternity leave followed by sick leave. Mm-hmm. We tend to see it also where you follow it with vacation and then sick leave and so on. So we recognize that perhaps women are saying they need more time, or sometimes we just enjoy being home, if I can be quite honest about it. And so you would see more often than regular that persons don't go back to work after the 3 months. They want some more time. Yeah. So, and that is a cost to Social Security. That is a cost to the employer, because he might have to find someone to fill in that space as well. So I can see how this could also improve the health of their officers there at Flow.
Yes, and this is, we are certainly setting the trend, and we are hoping that other companies would adopt and implement for their employees as well.
But Camila, I've seen and I've heard women complain about needing more time for breastfeeding, because they talk about the struggle of having the child, whether the 3 months is split in half, so you would have half of that after the baby is born, or you would have the whole 3 months. But then most of them talk about, going back to work, where they would have to express before work, then they're at work, and then, the clothes are all messed up from the breast milk. So I think too, I've heard of other countries that, give more time allotted to the mother for bonding time. So more time is good. It's good. It gives the mother time so she can, get the baby latch on properly, don't have the stress at the daycare where the baby will cry consistently, because attaching on to the breast is different to giving the child a bottle. Because when you have the baby and the baby is on his mother's breast, it feels comfort, it's bonding for the baby. But I can see the stress with the mother and the baby, just giving her half of 3 months. Well, if she decides to take the half of the 3 months or the 3 months, most times I would hear women talking about taking the full 3 months after and then their vacation. Mm-hmm. So it would give more time to the woman.
And I can say also, if you give us 6 months home, we're still going to take a vacation.
Yep.
Right? Because time with your child is never enough time, truly. Exactly. And so it's a hard balance. You have to balance work, productivity, and still protecting your Social Security fund and all the other elements that come into it. But again, I want to stress that this conversation needs to be carried further than here, because we're looking into the social already of our children. If we're promoting families, whether it be that we want to say we are into nuclear or visiting or whatever it is, whatever the status of the relationship, if we are promoting families, children's health, parents' health come into place, so that our Social Security systems, our work policies, all of them would be going to the same beat, really. Because we can't be all over, want families, but ain't want the father to spend the time with the child.
Right.
And, or the other way around, wanting the mother to rush back out before she's fully recuperated, because we know we don't find ourselves for about 4 years after a baby.
Right. Yes, and one of the reasons why I mentioned in the beginning the whole idea of the nuclear family and seen as the ideal family and the family forms, because there has been a lot of focus on the family forms.
In the policies.
On the family form, rather than the function of the family. Mm-hmm. The key function of the family, that of socializing of children, the economic aspect of it, and so on, and so therefore, that policy of the paternity leave that Flo has looks at the function of the family rather than just the family farm.
True.
You see what I'm saying? So we can have a nuclear family that is very dysfunctional.
Yes.
And we can have
A visiting
relationship or a single parent household that functions. So you have to look at the function that the family is providing. We know that we live in a very Christian society and the church promotes the nuclear family and so on. But at the very same time, you have to ask yourself, after so many centuries, and what was brought to us by the Europeans, why it is that we still have so few nuclear families in our societies? That is a question that we must ask. But yet, our societies are functioning. Our societies are not necessarily dysfunctional. Yes, we can find some dysfunction. But yet we look at what we call the developed countries, and we say that the European countries and so on, and that they promoted that nuclear, which is changing, of course, the nuclear family, which is changing. But are their societies any more functional than ours when it comes to certain ills within the society?
No.
Not really, you know. Not really. So the leave is something that you have to apply for. It just does not come automatic. You have to apply for it. You have to apply for the maternity leave. You have to apply for the paternity leave. Now with paternity leave, we still probably have to break down a stigma that is there. Because all we've heard about over these years is maternity leave. A man applying for paternity leave, he must be a woman. Let's face it.
But do they apply? Do they really? Do the men apply for paternity leave?
You would have to apply, I assume.
No, I mean, it's there, but do they really apply? Are they aware that this is being offered well?
Good question. There probably are many who are not aware that paternity leave exists. And that is why we read from the government policy with respect to paternity leave. Although we said it was,
it's difficult.
Although we said it is difficult, and it seems that it leaves a lot to be desired, and so on, within that policy. But if somebody applies, Chanel, and is denied the leave, if a mother applies for maternity leave, or a father applies for paternity leave, and they are denied by the company that they work for, how can the department assist them?
We've had women who come to the department asking for help and explaining that they were denied. But most cases I have seen were foreign women though. And when I call, I think it's Miss Leader, Natasha would tell me that, okay, let me check for you and I'll tell you what's happening actually. And then she would tell me, okay, the person have been here for how much time, however long they've been here, but they have not put in enough time to get the leave. So, okay, we look beyond that and say, okay, that's something that we can't do anything about, so it don't make sense calling again. So what we do sometimes is we partner with outside partners and we ask for like Pampers, or we could get some baby food for the baby, or I would sometimes maybe call Camilla. It depends on the situation, and I would ask her if, what can, you donate as a woman, right? Even though we talk about companies, but we still go and ask, individual persons, who have a passion for women and women issues, what can they contribute to that mother. And also the ministry itself, would give food voucher to that woman for whether it's for her, presently it would be for her at that time, but when she gets the baby, she still would be getting the food voucher assistance that would help to buy Pampers or food or whatever. So the ministry would still, look forward and help. Most times too, we tend to get in contact with their association, whether it's JAMKIT or the Spanish community, and we see if their president, can also ask for help and, assist the women in whatever way they can.
Mm-hmm. You wanted to say something, Camila, with respect to that?
No. I think that Chanel would have covered it and so on. If somebody is denied leave, it's because at Social Security they simply don't meet the qualifying conditions. And I want people to understand that we do some hunts, because we've seen persons whose benefit is short of one contribution week, which means this person would be denied 13 weeks benefits. So we just do some hunting, as in go back and look physically for paper records to make sure that this woman has the support that she needs for the next 13 weeks, because we understand the toll that a pregnancy takes on a woman's body. It's not just the baby delivery and it's over. It takes a while for you to really find yourself again, feel good again. So we understand, and so we do our part, especially to make sure that if a woman comes as close as 19 weeks, that we find that 1 week, which makes it 20, so she's able to qualify for the benefit.
Because it raises the question, if you have a pregnant woman, she gives birth and so on, she needs this time to be with the child. Mm-hmm. And if she does not qualify for the maternity leave, the dad is not working, then basically we have a problem there.
Mm-hmm. It's either she has to go back immediately to work or seek the support of the ministry, as Chanel would have mentioned.
But most of the times I would ask the mother, do you know that you can seek maintenance from the court? People don't like to hear that, but it's a fact. So if this is the only way that you are going to bond with your child, so let it be. Seek the maintenance support from the court. That would also help also.
You mean child support?
Yes. I call it a nice name, maintenance support. Yes.
You see, this goes back to it being a social problem.
Exactly.
Recognizing the systems that feed into the social ills. This here is the middle ground, really, but this is a social ill that we have to nip in the bud from the very conversations that we have in our households amongst the men. And you say, don't cry, you're supposed to be strong, you're supposed to this, you're supposed to that, to us saying, okay girl, it's okay to be soft and so on and so on. Those are the types of conversations that we need to break, and that people understand their role equally and individually. Right. Then we will start to see the type of changes that we need, more than the benefits from Social Security, more than the leave from flow. Then is when we're going to really start to see those changes that we need.
It always amazing me, this whole aspect of what we call child support. Because that maintenance that you spoke about, basically going through the court, is basically a financial arrangement. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And child support, in all that we're talking here, and the context in which we are speaking, in terms of child support, the maternity and the paternity leave, is not just about the economic aspect of it. We spoke about the social aspect of it, the nurturing, the caregiving, and all of that. And it has been known that women are the ones who nurture and who care and all of that sort of a thing. But at the very same time, those qualities are not just women qualities. Those are qualities for men as well. as you were saying, Camila, and somehow there needs to be a sort of a cultural revolution
Most definitely.
in terms of the way that people think, because paternity leave speaks to men being responsible, being involved in the care of their child at an early stage. Mind you, they are called to be responsible at every stage. But that crucial stage of development,
Yes.
when of course the mother needs most support. But sometimes the truth is that is when sometimes the mother is abandoned by the paternal part of that family.
We go back to the forms again, the forms of the different types of families and so on, because we realize a lot of the ills that we're having is because people simply don't take enough time to know each other. Soon after you're pregnant, and then you're expecting the person to be ABC when you really did not spend the time to find out if they're even XYZ.
Exactly.
So this is where it comes in, because if you have to reach that stage, is either there was a breakdown, total breakdown where you can't see past each other, or you really did not know each other.
That is correct, because then sometimes the male probably don't even want to, he don't want to change diapers, he doesn't want to even hear the child crying, the child is crying in the night and so on, disturbing them, and all of that really basically is that of parenting. It's what comes with parenting.
Yes.
And that is why we say it is a life-changing. It is something that changes your life.
Forever. Amen.
Forever.
That's
But some people do not want that responsibility. There are some men who are very responsible, but then there are others who are very irresponsible.
They think it's the mother's responsibility.
And
They
that's-
think it's the
that's
mother's
because how they were
responsibility.
trained as well.
Correct.
You see, it's socialization. It
Yes.
really comes down to our social view of what the family is.
Yeah, in fact, there are cases when a woman becomes pregnant, the man just start to behave strange. He runs away, let's face
Jump
it.
ship.
He runs away.
Yes.
It is a
Indeed.
fact. It happens all the time.
So sometimes that's where you see, the conflict starts right there. So even before the baby is born, there's the conflict. So it's like the baby was born into conflict. The mother and the father arguing back and forth, don't see the mother, don't see the father. Then sometimes too, the mother takes such a toll on the mother that sometimes they tend to abuse the child verbally.
Yes.
Yeah, you look just like him and you behave just, no, none of that.
But not only that, I think you can predict by the kind of care that that father has for the child while the mother is pregnant, and the support that that father provides. If that is not there, even before the child is born, you think it's going to be there after the child is born?
Exactly.
Camila, what do you say?
I think you have to look deep before you leap. Seriously, we need to take a look at what we want out of life, what we want our children's lives to look like before we really get into the business of having a child and having a family. Because I know of relationships where there are men, both parents are in the home, yet still one is not present. So he's not, even if he was supposed to get the 8 weeks to stay home, he still is not present.
Yes.
And this goes back again to our socialization. We have to include the men from very early on in our conversations with our sons, with our nephews, with our friends. We need to include the men so that they can see that their work is equal in child rearing.
That is correct. That is correct. Yeah. Now we are going to go to the phone lines, and I'm sure there are many people who want to call in. And the numbers to call are 466 2666 662 8674 767 4765, and the overseas number 1239 645 4500. Additionally, we have 2 vouchers to give away today for free fuel vouchers of $50 each, and these vouchers will be for 2 men who will call in. We are talking about paternity leave and so on, and I want them to answer one question. What is the importance of paternity leave? What is the importance of paternity leave? So you'll give me one reason for for paternity leave, and another reason for paternity leave. So therefore, if one person calls and says one thing and they're correct, and somebody calls and says the same thing, you don't qualify. You have to tell me something different. So our men, you have 2 $50 free fuel vouchers that you can win today. We welcome your calls. Right. Now, Charisma, is there anything else that you wanted to say with respect to the policy for flow?
I think I covered everything, but so far over 150 employees in 20 markets have already benefited from our new policy, including 105 male employees. Feedback on the policy has been extremely good. When asked about the most important benefit in taking parental leave, 66% said it was the time to build a stronger connection with their child. And this is what we have been speaking about for the entire afternoon, building that special bond.
Right. The importance again of the stability of the family. One of the things that is extremely important in terms of this maternity and paternity leave is something that is in the flow policy. We are human beings. And the way that people are treated is important in the workplace.
Yes.
And by granting someone maternity and paternity leave, an employer should not be upset. Some of them are upset, you know. Some of them are upset because all they see is that their work needs to be done.
But they will get more upset if the man decides to leave every minute.
Yes.
So just give him the leave.
Right. Working for you, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Leroy.
Good afternoon.
And those beautiful ladies you have there.
Yes, they are.
Any one of them pregnant?
No.
Okay then. Well, I will answer the question that you asked men. Why men should have paternity leave? So that they can be around to help the woman with the child. I don't know if I'm wrong or right.
Yes. What do you mean by help the woman with the child? Explain a bit more.
Okay. The woman will have her work to do. And so therefore she cannot do her work with the baby in one hand and she doing her work. That's one. And he's supposed to be around to help to clean, change the diapers, feed the child with the bottle, at least not with the breast, but with the bottle. And whatever else he can do to her. When the mother need a rest to sleep, then he can take the baby until the baby go to sleep and he put it down.
Yes, you have comprehensively answered, and so therefore one of those vouchers is for you.
Okay.
And you can go to the Department of Gender Affairs.
Yeah.
and asks for Mrs. Chanel Charles.
Yeah.
And what's your name? Give your name.
Well, my name is Vincent Roberto Benjamin.
Vincent what?
Vincente Roberto Benjamin, el español. El inglés, Vincent Roberto Benjamin.
Okay, right.
AKA radical culture.
We know that your culture, but I wanted your real
No.
name.
I have a question now for the ladies. Now, suppose a man have 12 women, and each one get twin from January to December. Can he get paternity leave? I've listened up the ear.
Okay. Thank you very much for your question. We have another caller.
Okay,
we'll
thank
hold
you.
that question. Working for you, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Williams.
Good afternoon.
I would like to ask one of the ladies in the house, how it is when a parent dies and the parent needs a small child, so 5, 6, 7 years, and only giving them $42 a month and $20 to it. That can't support the child when the parent said I need money in social security. That cannot support the child. Because when you carry a man on the court, the man is still paying $100 a week. So I think if the parents them die and leave money in social security, pack up the children their money, man, with $40-something and $70-something. That can't support the child a month. You agree? Somebody do something about that. Because social security workers them. But there ain't a lot of benefits out of social security. And people who parents putting in the money in here. That's why they're getting the benefit. So you doing them a little benefit too. Tap up the money.
Okay.
$40-something and $70-something a month cannot work.
Okay.
No. Okay, Mr. William, on that.
Thank you very much for your suggestion.
I want to thank the caller for her call. It seems that she's referring to the benefits, survivor's benefits. The minimum payment for survivor benefits is $103.70 per month. We do not have a 40-something or 70-something per month. We do recognize, though, that this is one of the benefits that the public has over the years said that they're not pleased with the calculation of it. And as we go through reform, we will be looking at this type of benefit. We must consider also that when someone dies and leaves a child, Social Security has a responsibility to that child from 0 to 18 if they're still in school. And so the smaller the benefit, this is the minimum payment. This would be of those persons who make the minimum wage or less, but we top it up so that each child at least can get $103.70 if the person is on the lower spectrum. But this is the minimum benefit, and it goes up based on the person's wages. So just to clarify, the benefit is $103.70 per child.
Right. I think the first caller spoke to something very important. Apart from the father helping to raise that child, the father is also there to support the mother in the home, because the mother has additional responsibilities with raising the child, and he can do housework, whether wash the dishes, wash clothes, iron, and those kind of things. And those things, again, that are traditionally seen to be a woman's job.
Correct.
Right? So there has to be some sort of a paradigm shift in terms of how our culture views things.
Yes. And it comes back to what Camilla has been reiterating all afternoon.
And the equal responsibility
Yes.
in terms of child rearing. That's where the equality comes in. It's not about, one person having more power than the other. It is about the equal sharing of power
Yes.
And responsibility.
and responsibility in the raising of children. So that caller made a very, very good point. And then the second caller raised a very thorny issue, of course, about this whole thing in our society about child support and going over to the court. That I have always seen that as being so embarrassing.
Yes.
Why should somebody have to take you to the court
To support your child.
to support your own child? You know the child is yours. Why somebody has to take you to court for that?
Camilla used a term, What did you say? Look before.
Look deep before you leap.
Look deep before you leap.
I remember one woman saying to me that, she will raise her child alone. She's not going to go to the court because she finds it such an embarrassing thing, but she can afford to raise the child alone.
That's correct.
But a lawyer can represent her, She don't have to go to court once there's a lawyer. So it's just the man in the court and the lawyer.
Listen,
So all of these are family matters, that we really have to be looking at.
I want us for some people it's embarrassing. For some people it's embarrassing. For some people it's sad. Because if I think about it, for me it's more sad than embarrassing. If I have to go to the court to seek the instruction or the law for him to support his child, that is what I'm going to do. No shame about it, because I didn't make a child on my own. And they have some people who has the means and say, I'm going to do it on my own, but then there are others who really don't have the means, and that is what they have to do. But all of these again come back down to our socialization.
Yes.
How we see each other, how we see the importance of family, of having a child that is not in a tug of war.
Exactly.
Yes.
Because these things are people, and they grow up to be the problems that we are trying to rectify now.
Precisely.
When we don't recognize that from birth, children need that stability and peace. So through paternity leave, through maternity leave, we're able to do all of this, but then it's more than that. It has to do with how we view each other. Socialization.
Yeah, but let's go back a little bit to the government policy, which I find still to be a bit discriminatory, because it says that a spousal relationship means a marital relationship or a common law relationship in which a male and female have been cohabiting for a period of not less than 5 consecutive years. So suppose I have my girlfriend and we're just together for 2 years, and something happens.
You get a baby.
We have a child. It simply means then that I cannot apply for paternity leave because I don't meet the criteria
Yes.
to apply for paternity leave. So I am denied all of that we're talking about here, to be able to spend that crucial time to support the mother and so on.
It's fair to say
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes. It's fair to say that the policy, as we've agreed, could do with a next review.
Yes,
And
indeed.
hopefully Flo's landmark policy here that I'm hoping that a lot of employers will reach out to Charisman Acts for, so that they can even coin or adopt theirs a bit, would be the way for us to get some revision there.
And perhaps it's not going to happen overnight, but at the very same time, I think one of the reasons why it's not happening fast enough is because the company may see themselves operating at a loss. Here it is that we are paying for maternity leave and paternity leave, and this means that it's a reduction in the number of people we have.
Or it means
And
that
production.
you have to hire somebody
And we have to
fill
hire
it.
somebody else to fill that spot and so on. let's face it.
It's a tough balance.
It's a tough balance. It's a tough balance. But at the very same time, we agree in principle and we understand the importance of child rearing. And that early stage when there's so much support that is really needed. The first 3-4 months, the first 6 months.
It's a tough balance, yes, and more employers need to recognize that your human asset, your human resource is the most valuable asset. You could have all the training, all the resources in terms of equipment and infrastructure, but if that human element is missing, then your business certainly won't be as productive, and that's money lost. So that the employer can now look at this as saying, hey, I am supporting these families. I'm sure I'm not going to see the immediate return, but the simplest things carry the most value.
Indeed.
They ain't gonna forget.
That is correct. Rather than viewing it in a negative way. Oh, she's always away from work because she's always getting pregnant.
Social Security need more pregnancies. People laugh when we say that because they say, oh, well, you only have such and such, but we have an aging population. We have far more people getting to pensionable age and less people coming into the workforce. And in order for us to pay pensions today, we depend on workers today to pay. So if we are saying, well, I'm not going to have any children, or I'm not going to have the 10 or the 4 that my mother had, we are really, in fact, doing an injustice to our social security systems. Charisma smiling.
It's a fact. It's a
but
fact.
it is a true equation of what the true picture looks like.
And in some countries, I remember a few years ago when I went to Taiwan, and the President Tai was being sworn in. For the first time, it was historic because she's the first female president of Taiwan. And one of the things she mentioned, I remember it, in her inaugural address was what you're talking about. She said the population was aging and people were not having children.
And you know why too?
And yes.
The focus has changed a lot over the years for us being health conscious. We promote healthy living, we promote healthy eating, so more and more persons are healthy and living longer. And that's why sometimes you see people who are 62 and are receiving the pension and they look as fabulous as you and I. Right? So, and that's why you hear them say, well, me ain't ready to go home yet out of the workforce because they still feel productive. We have spent a lot of time talking about improving our health at the expense of populating.
Reproductive health.
It's true.
Yeah,
so we see more people getting pensions, and I can tell you, in a month we get at least 150 new, at least. Okay, let me be a little more average. We at least get 120 new pensioners per month.
Yeah, and in order for societies to continue, you have to have child rearing. I don't think anyone is advocating that you go and get 10 and 15 children. I think those days should be behind us.
Oh, yes.
But at the very same time, it speaks to the economy, production, and all of that. Because if people are not having children and the population is aging, what is going to happen to your economy? What is going to happen to your GDP? What is going to happen to production? You don't have enough people who are at an age where they're being productive. As Camila said, they're on pension.
Dominica's Prime Minister, he said it a couple of weeks ago, and people laughed at how he said it, but he said, you know, you guys need to get busy and give us some children. And as you mentioned, this affects the economy, and then we still say, well, we had 50,000 for the last 10 years. We're making the children.
Sometimes that happens, because of economic struggles that
Yes.
people have as well. People really cannot afford
Yes.
to raise children, and I think that was one of the arguments that the president of Taiwan was putting forward as well. So it's not that people don't want a family, but sometimes it is so expensive to have a family, and so sometimes people do get married, and they're married, but they don't have any children.
And more than the expense, the structures, the support,
All of that.
all of those things, because I wouldn't say I would want more, I'd be lying. But there are people who want more, but because there's not the support, they don't have the mother at home to look after their child, they don't have the means to work and still continue to work after the hours because their child is in good care and stuff like that. So the structures are missing.
Yes, and that is an important point that you mentioned, Camila, the network of the kin that constitutes the family. Sometimes you have the godmother and the godfather, you have the extended family, and everybody chips in.
Or the favorite aunt, like
Or the
Louise'
favorite
mom.
aunt, and so on. And sometimes you see that structure that is crumbling. It is crumbling. That support is basically crumbling. But the discussion about the family and how the family matters, of course, we know that the family is the basic cell of any society. And without the family and the proper functioning of the family, society has a problem.
Indeed.
And the maternity leave and the paternity leave, I think, recognizes that. That you have a baby and the support must be there to care for that baby. At a crucial time, it's actually what we would call a primary moment. It's a primary moment. And policies need to change with respect to some of these laws. We have the maternity, but the paternity policy basically needs revisiting. If we're really to understand the important role, not just the mother, but that the father plays as well in the rearing of that child. And at the very same time, we still need a change in the mentality of the society with respect to men themselves and how they think in terms about the rearing of children. So a lot has to change. Sometimes you just can't have policy, You have to have a whole education campaign. A shift in terms of people's thinking and so on. But I am seeing more men involved in the raising of their children. I have seen it. Some are still what we call worthless, but...
And maybe they're the minimum,
And they're at the minimum.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have you seen a change, Chanel, over the years in terms... I see men, they go into the barber shops with their sons and...
Taking the children to the park, etc.
Right, they're
Yes.
taking their daughters out, you see them, and so on and so on. Have you seen that? What would you say? You're the Department of Gender Affairs. You must have some idea in terms of what's taking place with respect to these things.
Yes, I've seen that, but probably on a scale of 1 to 10, I would say probably 5. Probably 5.
So we're only halfway there.
Because, not going off track, but I mostly deal with domestic violence. And most times you would have the fathers complaining of they want to see their child, So I would say yes. So even though there's a separation going on with the mother and the father, you would still hear the father complaining, she's not letting me see my child. And I would say you have to wait on the court. It determines, the court determines, what happens then. But most times I say wait. But most times, yes, men are asking about their children during that process.
Okay, basically we're out of time, but I still have one voucher, a free voucher to give away for free fuel for $50. And I am looking for a man to call in and to tell me the importance of paternity leave. One reason why paternity leave is important. The numbers to call, I repeat them, 466-2666, 662-8674, 767-4765, and those are the local numbers. We have no callers.
I guess they
Maybe the conversation has been too heavy. But truly we need to recognize our role that we all play if we really want to see changes in our society. It's more than just the leave. There needs to be structures in place, not just in policy, but in reality, in terms of in spaces where you could go with your children, like green parks and swimming facilities and so on. We need to have a more gender sensitive community as well, where roles are not so much a man role or a woman role. That it wouldn't be such a surprise to see a father combing his daughter's hair, things like that, or cooking a meal, and the conversation to change where your male friends don't say, oh boy, Mr. Mom, because he chooses to be home where his partner is out, so he has to take care of the children and so on. So there needs to be a total shift in how we see ourselves in the bigger picture.
That is correct, and I applaud basically that gentleman who you said had paternity leave.
Yes.
And he spoke to we do have a caller working for you. Good afternoon.
Yeah, Leroy and the ladies, me again.
It's you again. Okay.
Yes, I want another man to win and won the question.
Yes.
But the reason them ladies, tell the ladies be careful how they say Social Security want more pregnancy or whatever it is. Because a man will never tell a woman he done with that. But woman like to tell man who me, sharp shot, he done with that. So,
thanks, sir.
You don't blame us.
Okay.
And Singapore is asking for people to come there to get babies.
Yeah.
Because the senior citizen population is going down. So men have a lot of opportunity, man. We have a lot of option to choose. Who make. Man don't say, oh, done with that. But woman like to say, who me done with that, man. Done with that.
Yeah.
Anyway, have a good day.
Thank you so much. Okay, we are out of time. And I really want to thank you, Charisma, Marketing and Communications Executive at Flow, Charisma Patrick, for educating us in terms of Flow as a company and what it has in place for paternity leave. It is quite admirable. I thank you, Miss Camila Lawrence, who is the Public Relations Manager at the Social Security Board, and of course, who is no stranger on the media channels. She always educates us about Social Security and our benefits and our rights and what is happening with respect to that. Thank you very much, Camila, and thank you very much for your advocacy in terms of the revisiting of the paternity leave policy. And thank you, Chanel, Mrs. Chanel Charles, who is Senior Gender Officer at the Department of Gender Affairs. Chanel, of course, you are always welcome here, all of you, and you always come and show what the Department of Gender Affairs is doing in terms of bringing about gender equality, people understanding, you know, their roles and that sort of a thing. And Camila touched on quite a bit of it. How there has to be change in our society with respect to that. How we view these, sometimes we have these things boxed in. Oh, this is what a man should do and this is what a woman should do. And you know, we need to change some of that sort of a thinking. Men should be more involved in the raising of their children at a very early stage of their development. And that is why the paternity leave is important. So thank you to all three of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
You have been listening to another edition of Working for You. Thank you very much to our callers and all of our listeners to today's program. Next week we'll be back with another Working for You program. Until then, I am Les Roy Williams. Take care.